And right into the stretch. Looking back and throws up the middle. Rose is on his way around. Picked up by Otis.
Here comes the ready or not. Here comes the boys from the south. Here comes the ready or not. How you like me now? I say, here comes the boom, ready or not. Here comes the boys from the south. Boom, here comes the boom, ready or not. How you like me now?
You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati.
You are watching live to the best damn Cincinnati sports podcast this side of Batavia High School. If you know, you know. My name is Santori Miles. We got Cincy James. We got Big Savage Greg, Bengal Dad, and the one, the only Bengals legend, Ken Anderson. How we doing?
I'm doing good. I like the intro. You couldn't find one shot of me to put in there?
I was trying to find shots of people getting hit, and I didn't want to do that to you.
Oh, well, I got hit a lot in my career. That would have been really easy.
Oh God. Well, we've got obviously Bengal legend, Ring of Honor inductee Ken Anderson on the show. We just found out a revelation about Kenny's day drinking lager. Do you want to fill the people in on that? Is that okay?
I mean, I was a great looking can. I mean, we were authorized in 80 Kroger stores. We were doing well. Part of the proceeds go to my foundation, the Ken Anderson Alliance. And all of a sudden we get a cease and desist order from the NFL saying that there's not one thing on there that is the intellectual property of the Bengals or the NFL, but everything taken in total, the average consumer would assume it's a Bengal endorsed product. So the cans are no longer available. And it was a really good beer too. That's the problem.
Yes.
So can you not make the beer at all then?
No, it's on draft. We still make it on draft. So yes, you go down to the Holy Grail. It's always on tap down there. So okay. Among other places. So yes.
All right. Well, let's get started. I think Greg, you should start. Basically, we've just got questions. We'll kind of turn this into kind of a conversation and go from there, if that's all right.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Anderson, my first question to you is: you were like one of the very first QBs of the West Coast offense installed by Bill Walsh. Tell me what your first thought of the West Coast offense was.
Well, when you come from Augustana College to the Cincinnati Bengals, a Division III school, you know absolutely nothing. But Bill Walsh was such a great teacher, a great coach. The rules were different then. The draft was in January. So by the first week of February, I moved to Cincinnati and was meeting with Bill, and we installed the offense, and he and I would just, stand in his office with the football and work on footwork. I'm standing in place, just doing nothing and talking about stuff, looking at video. And he just, kind of was a piece of clay, and he just molded me into the kind of quarterback he wanted.
Awesome.
So with Bill Walsh, what was it like with him, and then seeing him go on to San Francisco and have such a flourishing career?
Well, that was very tough for me. But at that moment in time, when Paul Brown made the decision after the 75 season, we got beaten in the playoffs by Oakland that year. I think 31-28, something like that. But he was going to name Tiger Johnson, our offensive line coach, the head coach. And at that moment in time, I thought that was the best decision. I thought Tiger was more ready to be a head coach than Bill was at that time. Now, hindsight is 20/20. That's always the case. But that was my feeling at the right time. But I think it really affected me because Bill and I got to be close personal friends as well as coach and quarterback.
Bengal. Oh, I was going to say Bengal. Santori, go ahead, bud.
I went ahead and muted. I think he's got a little bit of construction going on. So sorry about that. You're still here. You're still connected, but there's a hammer. He's moving into a new place, so I think some appliances are going in. I have one thing I wanted to bring up that I guess some Bengal fans might consider controversial, but I thought it would be interesting to bring up. You did, and most, I think, fans probably just ignore this fact for Cincinnati, coach for the Steelers at one point. What was that experience like?
It was a great experience. And to go back now, I had coached for the Bengals for 10 years. Marvin Lewis came in. I liked Marvin a lot. He has the right to bring in his own people, and I was let go. So I did not leave Cincinnati on my own terms, let's say. Went to the Jaguars for 4 years and got let go there. And through my relationship with Bruce Arians, got hooked up with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. And let me say this, Mike Tomlin is a great head coach. The Rooney family was great to me. There are more similarities with the Steelers organization and the Bengals organization than there are differences. So I enjoyed my 3 years there. We got to go to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. I will say that Super Bowl ring never comes out when I'm in Cincinnati. So I have the respect for that. But no, I mean, a lot of those Steelers players, Lynn Swann, Jack Ham, Andy Russell, although Joe Green, it goes on and on. I mean, I became good friends with those guys as well. So my wife, Kristen, and I really enjoyed our 3 years in Pittsburgh.
So as somebody that's worked for both sides, player, coach, what have you, is there as much animosity between the organizations as there is with the fan bases?
Let me go back to when I played. There was a mutual respect. They were our big rivals. But yet there was respect for each other. I think sometimes that respect got lost in the translation as time went on. But my favorite story is that I think it was 79 was the worst Bengals team I was ever on. I mean, we were awful. We were 0-7, and the Steelers come in at 7-0 to Riverfront on their way to another Super Bowl win. We beat them, I think it was 34-7. They didn't cross midfield till the fourth quarter. I mean, we just hammered. If you look back when I was the starting quarterback, we had the best record by far of anybody in the National Football League against the Steelers. Later on that year, we're going up to Pittsburgh, and we're getting killed. And it's the fourth quarter, and Joe Green sacks me again, and he's laying on top of me, and he says, "Kenny, why don't you come in the locker room for a beer after the game?" Sounded like a pretty good idea to me. The locker rooms at that time at Riverfront Stadium were right next to each other, so I showered quickly, grabbed my bag, walked in the door. Bradshaw is there at his locker. Was the first guy I saw. He's doing his media interviews, stops the interviews, takes me to the back of the locker room. They turned off their sauna and had a garbage can full of beer in the center. Of course, it's packed, and he clears off a couple. Says, "Kenny's with me," and we sit down and have 2 or 3 beers. I'm feeling better about life until I go out to catch the buses to go to the airport, and they've left. And I'm going, how do I explain I got fined and had to buy a plane ticket from Pittsburgh to Cincinnati because I'm in the Steelers locker room drinking beer after the game? Now, I wasn't having a great year. We weren't having a great year. And so I'm running around the stadium looking for a cab to go to the airport, and there goes the Bengals equipment truck. And I run down, I flag it down. Tom Gray was our equipment manager. They stop, they pick me up. I ride in the back of the truck. We go to the airport. The plane is late getting there. We pull up to the gate. Guy lets me in the side door. Everybody's standing around. At first, I'm a little bit upset. The starting quarterback's not there, and you don't know. Then I started thinking maybe they know and they just don't care.
Oh, my God.
Well, that is a perfect transition because, Greg, I know you've got some questions about Mr. Gray.
Yeah, so my coworker, his brother-in-law is Tom Gray Jr., and he's brought up, and he says just any foreign player comes on, he keeps saying, ask about Tom Gray. And I know I think you know his Tom Gray's son very well, too. So,
sure thing.
So, what is your number one Tom Gray story you remember?
I don't know. I mean, it was kind of a one-man operation, and everybody kind of complained to him because, before practice, you need a jock strap or a t-shirt or a pair of shorts, and the equipment room was locked, and there's just a bin with all those in outside, but he was out on the field getting everything set up for practice. But I mean, Tom was one of my closest friends, and he I would go there every morning, have a cup of coffee. That was the start of my day in the equipment room. And at the end of every day, I'd go in and I'd have a beer with him before I left to go home. And so one day we're there, and in comes Forrest Gregg, and we're having a beer, and I kind of slid it around behind me. And he didn't say anything, and he walked out. And after I left, he came back in and told Tom, he says, "I don't ever want to see a player drinking a beer in this room again." From then on, we just locked the door. So, but little Tommy had just moved to Hilton. We just moved back from Hilton. I was there 13 years after I retired, and he moved down there. And we have a Bengals bar down there. And he says, "Can you go in the game today?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "I got a couple of things I think my dad would like you to have." And he brought down my first Pro Bowl helmet, which was when they took it and they painted the helmets. So I had the red helmet with the A on it for AFC. And he gave me my kicking shoe. Few people know this, but when I was a junior at Augustana, our kicker had graduated. We had no kicker. So we had tryouts. And, you kick the ball from the 5. Okay, you're eliminated. You go on. We go back. And I win the job. They got me a square toe. So when I went to the Bengals, I had my square toe. Never kicked, never practiced it. And we're in Chicago. And Horst Muhlman was our kicker. This is my second year in the league. And he's kicking off. There's a poor kickoff. Dick Butkus was in the wedge. He gets the ball. The Red Seas part. There's Butkus and there's Horst. Horst is trying to run off the field, and Butkus runs him over, and Horst gets hurt. So the next week we go to work on extra point and field goals. So now I'm the backup. I'm doing it. And, at that point in time, soccer styles kicker, we're not real popular. And Horst was a great kicker. But so I'm out there, I'm kicking, and we get back to 35 yards, and I'm nailing. The guys are going crazy. Horst is in the locker room. He sees what's going on. A miraculous recovery. He gets dressed and comes out and finished the practice. So I never kicked again. But my shoe was always in the ball bag on the sideline for every game I ever played.
Oh, my gosh. That is so cool.
Chad Johnson was doing his Ken Anderson impression.
Well, I'm going to let that one go.
Yeah.
Bengal Dad, let's get you in there.
I'll try to get one in between the hammering. In 1981, at the beginning of the season, I clearly remember being at that opening game. I'm wondering, do you think that game with the 3 interceptions, I believe they were all in the first quarter, and then
no question,
Schottert comes in. Did that turn your career around?
I don't know. I mean, they had drafted the year before my replacement, Jack Thompson, the throwing Simone in the first round. I mean, so there was a lot of pressure on me, and I kind of let it get to me a little bit. And the last preseason game that year in Cincinnati, right before halftime, we're going down the field to score, and we're at the 5-yard line. I throw an interception 95 yards the other way for a touchdown. I get booed off the field. So now we open up with Seattle, and I thought I had to be perfect, and you can't be perfect and try to play. And so you're right. I mean, I threw 3 interceptions, and I think they ran 2 of them back for touchdowns, and one of them to the 1-yard line. We're down 21-0 at the end of the first quarter, and rightfully so, Forrest benches me. Jack Thompson was hurt, so Turk goes in. and he's running around, and we end up winning the game 27-21. And I remember, it was Labor Day weekend that year. And so I'm at a family picnic on Monday, and one of my uncles comes up and says, "Hey, I'm just watching the news. How's it feel not starting next week?" I go, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Forrest was on the news. You're not starting." And I go and I called our offensive coordinator, Lindy Infante, and I said, "What the heck's going on?" He said, "You better come down here." So we go down and we talk, and then Forrest says, we had Tuesday off. He said, "Meet me in there early on Wednesday morning." And we talked. We're going to play the New York Jets. And, is it better if I start, if I come off the bench? We're talking about all the scenarios. And he goes, "Kenny, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to start." He goes, "Okay, you're starting." Well, so I practice all week, and the first team session on Wednesday, we're in the huddle. I call a pass play, and the offensive line says, which side are you throwing to so we can go make the tackle after you throw an interception?" I go, ah. And then, so we're on our way to New York, and I'm thinking, their defensive line is called the New York Sack Exchange. Gastineau, Klecko, Marty Lyons, Abdul Salam. I said, "Am I making the right decision here?" And so we go to take the bus to the game, and normally the offensive line gets a hotel van. They go to the stadium early. We get to the stadium, and right next to the old Shea Stadium is the tennis facility for the U.S. Open tennis tournament, which is going on that day. We go in the locker room. We have no offensive line. They're not there. Well, it turned out that the van drivers are going to Yankee Stadium rather than Shea Stadium. Now they're caught in traffic. We got the state police out looking for them. We go out to warm up, and our starting offensive line is not there. Now I'm really sweating. And so finally they show up. They can't get taped when we go in. We're in the middle of warm-ups. They come trotting out. They got to go back in after warm-ups and get taped, and we come out. So I'm thinking, okay, the first time we got the ball, I'm thinking they're going to Lindy Infante. He's going to let me get into the game, hand off a couple times, kind of settle down a little bit. And we're not. I look over, and the first play is a pass play. So I go in the huddle. I go, "All right, you assholes, I'm going to throw the ball this time. Probably going to go to the right. Just get over and make the tackle in case anything happens." Everybody laughs. We go and we win the game, and of course I go on and I lead the league in passing, and I'm MVP of the league.
There you go.
Everything turned right then.
Yep. You never know.
That's unreal.
Didn't you also lead the league in rushing for a quarterback that year?
Yes, I was the second leading rusher on the team behind Pete Johnson. So yeah, people kind of forget I was a pretty mobile quarterback back in those days.
There is a question in the chat. Crypt Keeper says, "Do you still drink Folgers every time you watch game film?"
Yes. It's half capped right now, and I don't watch a lot of game film, but that's what I wake up to every morning. In fact, when I get up, I put I got a Keurig, and so I put one in. I get a cup of coffee going as I'm putting on my shoes. And then when that's done, then I'll make the pot of coffee for my wife and I for the rest of the day. So yes, I do.
There you go.
I think the line was it calms you down as it picks you up or something like that. That was the commercial.
Santori, I think you look like you had a question there.
I'm all over the place because I've got multiple different ways I could transition here. I'm not sure which way I want to go. Do I want to talk more about the 81 season? Do I want to talk a little bit about Joe Burrow? And I think that's kind of where I really want to go. And I think that's something.
Just go wherever you want to go. That's fine.
All right. As a quarterbacks coach and as a MVP quarterback in the NFL, what are the things that you see out of Joe Burrow that are just beyond what you would see out of a normal quarterback?
I think natural accuracy. that was the thing that I always looked for, in a quarterback when I was coaching and scouting. Can you throw the ball from here to there and know where you want it to go? And it's not always going to be perfect. And, your arm angles change. You're on the move. You got to do all these other things. I think the other thing, how do you react in big moments? As Paul Brown, would always say, is the game too big for you? And I think Joe is he's fundamentally, technically, he's great. He shines when the lights are brightest. And I think you just go to his background. He loves football. And I think that's the other thing. And that's, I think, what's great about this Bengals team, and I always say is, they know what it takes to win. But that's not good enough. You know what it takes to win. Are you willing to pay the price to do what it takes to win? And that's the big difference. And I think this Bengals team has it.
Go ahead, Santori. I know you got more. I know it.
The one thing my dad used to always talk about, because I was not fortunate enough to watch you. You were a little bit before my time.
Oh, yeah, you're not that young.
I am 30 years old. My father used to just always talk about your release point, how high and tight you were with the ball. Was there any specific quarterback coach that taught you that? Was that something that took a long time to develop? Where did that come from?
I think it's natural. I always, now every quarterback, they got their quarterback coach. They do this, they do that. I went to a small high school in Batavia, Illinois, and you played every sport. And I thought playing every sport helped me be a good quarterback. I was a catcher. So therefore, there's the release. You got to throw it over the top so the ball doesn't tail off when you're trying to throw a runner out at second base. I also played shortstop. You got to make a lot of different, arm angles, at shortstop, depending on what the play talks about. All those things help me to be a better quarterback. I played basketball. All those footwork drills that we did in basketball to stay on balance helped me to be a better quarterback. And so, I almost, I think it's unfair to kids today that at an early age, what am I going to be? A basketball player, a baseball player, a football player, a soccer player, and I got to do it all. I got to play summer leagues. I got to play on select teams, all this other stuff. And then certainly, a big influence in me and not only my playing days, but my coaching days was Bill Walsh. And he was the first one that kind of coordinated the depth of drops of a quarterback for the depth of the routes of the receivers. And have a progression that you had to go to. You got 1, 2, 3, here's your outlet. Let's get the ball off. Don't take sacks. And so he was just a big influence in my career.
Do you have a Paul Brown story that maybe isn't very well known that just sticks out in your mind?
Gosh, you caught me off guard, on that one. I think it was, I'll go back to the training camp, and it was his, I think, last year, coaching. So it was 1975, and I'm sitting there, and it's my, 71, they do my fourth year in the league. And I'm sitting there, and he had, training camp started, he gave us a talk. He laid out the structure of the organization, everything. It was a 4-hour talk. And I'm sitting there, okay, I've heard this before, all this. He says, Kenny, he said, how many times have you heard this talk? I said, 4, coach. He said, Lou Gross has heard it 16 times. Sit up, pay attention, you'll learn something new. Boy, I sat up in my chair, and I never moved after that. But, he was, such a he just laid it out how the organization was spread out, and, you couldn't go over his head. The final decision was his, but what a great coach and what a great judge of talent. And I had the utmost respect for Paul.
Greg, go ahead, bud.
So I was talking to my dad. He wanted me to ask you this question. If you were playing today, how would the change of rules in today's game affect the way you play back in the 70s and 80s?
I would have been better. Because number one, I was mobile. I could avoid the rush. Number two, you can't hit the quarterbacks as hard as you used to. Receivers get off the line easier than they used to. I think I would have been, a very successful quarterback, probably more successful today than I was back then.
Now, speaking of your playing days, back in the 80s, the early 80s, you had just great facial hair. How did it feel to have Wilford Brimley, Tom Selleck, and Ken Anderson be the poster child for the mustache in the early 80s?
Well, wow. Thank you so much. It all started after the 80s season, which, didn't end well for us. And I went down with a group of guys down to Siesta Key, Florida to play golf for a few days. And I started growing a mustache. I decided to keep it. And I thought it looked pretty good. And I really felt pretty good about it until I went into coaching. And then, the other players, I went into Jacksonville and, here's our coach, and the head coach, Jack, we put a photo of me with my mustache on. It became known as.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
He's back. Hold on.
What do you say after that?
We lost you there for like 5 seconds. Sorry. Jack Del Rio put the picture up, you said.
Yes, and the players started saying, "Well, that was your porno stash." and so I became real proud of it after that. And then, it was my last year in Pittsburgh, and the guys knew I was going to retire. So we go in one day, and there's all these pictures of me around the whole facility. It's the Ken Anderson Grow Your Mustache Month. And of course, Roethlisberger was behind it all. I said, "All right, you asshole, I'll grow my mustache back." And so, but the nice thing was that most of the team and most of the coaches grew mustaches back for that month as well. So, but I must say, when January 1 came, I shaved it right back off.
I wasn't going to go to the porno stash, but you went there, so that makes it great.
Well, I just got to call it like it is.
I'm gonna deviate back to Pittsburgh just a little bit. Obviously, you were the coach for Roethlisberger then, as quarterbacks coach. What was he like as a quarterback? Like, what was that day-to-day with Ben like?
He was the most talented quarterback I ever coached. I mean, he was really good. And, the challenge with him was giving him the information that he needed to know. I mean, I was always the kind of quarterback that wanted to know everything, and with Ben, it was the challenge of, what does he need to know to function for that game? And, I will say one thing, one of the greatest drives ever, we're in the Super Bowl against Arizona in the 2008 season, I believe it was. And we got the lead, and all of a sudden, Kurt Warner hits Larry Fitzgerald down the middle. We're behind. We're in a 2-minute drill. We get the ball at the 20. First play is a sack. Okay, Ben takes us on an unbelievable 2-minute drive, and then hits Santonio Holmes in the most unbelievable catch and throw I've ever seen to win a Super Bowl. So, I mean, Ben was a big time player. And I just, I always really had a lot of respect for him. He was a great player.
What was it frustrating for you as the quarterback's coach seeing him not audible, but like just kind of create weirdly on all these different plays, like go down, or nope, but he stayed up and he made a play.
No, not at all, because that was his strength.
Okay.
I think when I went in the first year, he had I was close to the league lead in interceptions. And a lot of them came when he was outside the pocket making throws. And that was a lot of things that we talked about. I always say, not only, know what you know, but make sure you know what you know when you're throwing to somebody when you're outside the pocket. And he cut his, interceptions down tremendously, that next year. And so he was a great guy to work with. Charlie Bass was our backup, at that point in time was another great guy to work with. A year later, I think we got Byron Leftwich, who I coached in Jacksonville, came in as a backup. So, no, I had a great quarterback room to work with. And in fact, my office was right next to the head coach's office. And we were on the second floor. And that's where our meeting rooms were at, in our big meeting room. And, we had a rule that the players had to leave their cell phones down on the first floor. So we're in a meeting, and I got a cell phone. I go and I put it in the charge. I put it on the windowsill behind my desk. So we're in a meeting. We're talking. The phone rings. Oh shit! And I turn it off, and Ben starts giving me a lot of. Oh gosh, boy, would you give me a lot of grief if our phones went off in this room? And it happens again. Oh God, you'd be fining us if this was going on now. Oh, but they're giving me all kinds of grief. And then it goes off a third time. And now I'm really, Mike Tomlin pokes his head in the room.
Oh, lost him again.
A pretty fun time.
So we lost you again. You said Mike Tomlin poked his head in the room, and that's where we lost you.
Yeah, he was the one that was calling me on my cell phone.
Oh my gosh. But Bengal Dad, go ahead and hop in here. Oh,
too much noise.
Okay.
Well, text me a question.
They're still hammering in the background, I guess.
Yeah. There's another one from our loyal fan here, Crypt Keeper. If you played today, what would be on your playlist on the headphones? Everybody's wearing the Beats or the Bose headphones. What's on your playlist? He also said maybe a little Welcome to the Jungle.
No, it would be something country.
Okay.
I really like Rascal Flatts, although they're no longer together, but I got to know those guys very well from when they came to Cincinnati. I got to know Jay DeMarcus, from some golf tournaments. So I really like, Rascal Flatts. So it would be something with them, I think.
Okay. Gotcha. Greg, go ahead, bud.
So I never heard too many good reports. This is another question a coworker of mine told me to ask. Spinney Field. I have not heard too many pleasant stories about Spinney Field. What was your take on it?
Well, now you got to remember, when you come from Augustana College, I thought that was the greatest thing going. They always said that, they call it the West Coast offense. It should have been the 8th Street Viaduct offense, because that's where it was created. It was Spinney Field. Now, we did have, I think, a waste treatment plant nearby, and the smell was not always great. I think, I'm not sure, but if I turned off the lights, I think I'd glow, and I think it may come from what was around Spinney Field. So that's but I thought, like I said, I thought it was a great place.
Bengal Dad, I see you're not muted anymore.
I can talk now. So going back again to 1981, because that's just a season that's near and dear to my heart. The Freeze Bowl, the preparation before the game, the mental adjustment or a mental approach you had to take before the game. Is that one of your more proud moments, the way you played in that game?
Oh, no question. Now, we went out on Saturday, at the stadium in practice. We do more on, back in those days, we did more on Saturday than most teams do on Thursdays now. I mean, we had a regular practice. I mean, we're doing 7-on-7. We're doing team. We're doing live 2-minute drills. So we were out there, in those conditions. So we kind of knew what we were going to expect. And so, I mean, I wake up Sunday morning, and I was always up early, and I let Lapham sleep in, and I go down to get a cup of coffee. I grab a paper, and I open the front door of the hotel. And I go, oh, shit, it's cold out today. So, we get down there, and I still remember Forrest Gregg's pregame speech. He said, "Men, it's cold out today. It's going to be a lot like going to the dentist. You know it's going to hurt, but you got to go anyway." And so we go. And my favorite story about the game is that in the middle of the first quarter, and they brought in heated benches. We had never seen heated benches before. And so it's the middle of the first quarter. I'm sitting on the bench, and luckily I've got my helmet on because they've got these slots you got to tuck your feet into, and I'm sitting on my hands, and somebody threw a cape over me, and there's a big roar of the crowd, and I go to stand up to see if there's a turnover if I'm going back in. I stand up, my feet don't go out, I go down, and the first thing that hits is my face mask. I'm seeing stars. I'm calling for the trainer. I said, his name was Marv. Marv, give me some smelling salts. I can't get knocked out of the championship game falling off the damn bench. Now, in today's world, they didn't have all the cameras. In today's world, somebody would have caught that on camera. I'd still be on NFL's funniest videos. But more importantly, I probably would have had to gone to the tent and concussion protocol, may not have finished the game. So, but we won.
Yes.
Yeah.
So speaking of some of your teammates and how different the game is today, one guy that I am convinced would be a monster today, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, is Isaac Curtis. Because you can't touch the receivers anymore.
Right.
No question. Isaac, number one, he had the size. I mean, he was, 6'1", 190. He'd be a good size receiver today. He's as fast as any receiver in the league. I mean, he started off at Cal and ran track. They wanted him to try out for the Olympics. The two guys that went to the Olympics for the U.S., Isaac had beaten in college, but he was transferred to San Diego State, and he wanted to play football. He was going from running back to wide receiver, and he wanted to be there. So he did not. They wanted him to be on the Olympic relay team, if nothing else, and he chose not to. But he was not, like some of those guys. Tommy Smith, Bob Hayes, they were fast guys that wanted to be receivers. Isaac was a receiver that was fast. He had change of direction. He had great hands. He had a great feel for the football game. I mean, he is Jamar, now may take his place, but Isaac, up until this point, is the best receiver the Bengals have ever had.
I love that.
I believe it.
Yeah. Bengal Dad, I think you're itching to have another question.
No, go ahead, guys. I don't want to keep going back to 1981, so go ahead.
You look a little bit like Rex Ryan sitting there.
Should I scream some expletives at you?
I watch those shows all the time, and is that guy Rex Ryan?
Oh my goodness. I don't have the big white choppers like Rex has.
Well, you can work on that though.
Yeah, I could buy those.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
All right, so I will ask you another question about the Super Bowl. I mean, to me, what was so disappointing? I went to that game, and it's like the only Super Bowl that's ever been in this freezing cold weather, where the fans don't really get to enjoy. It seemed like it, at least. The fans don't really get to enjoy the I guess all the hoopla. But when you're getting ready to start that game and you're listening to the national anthem, and I believe it was Diana Ross singing the national anthem. I know my butterflies are all over the place. My heart's pounding like crazy. What's going through your mind? Are you scared? Are you worried about screwing up, or what's going on?
You're anxious a little bit, and I will say this, that after the AFC Championship game that we won, we stayed in Cincinnati that next week to practice, and it was just as cold. We didn't have heated benches. Heaters on the, we couldn't get a lot done. Hope in hindsight, we probably should have gone somewhere warmer to prep for it. So we in fact, we had a couple days off after the game, and some guys, left town to go home, and there was a snowstorm. They were a day late getting back, and Forrest, kind of just let things go. We get up to Pontiac. We go to the game. The main road to the stadium is closed off because the vice president was going to the game. We're taking sidewalk. We're a little late getting there. Everybody's a little bit on edge. You get in the locker room. You go to the training room, and there's a piece of tape at each training table. You write your number on there. That's the order you get taped in. Some guy jumped in the line, and there's a little altercation going on there. We might have been a little tight, going into that game. And then you start the game. You try to convince yourself, it's just another game. Well, as you mentioned, Diana Ross was doing the national anthem. I'm thinking, she doesn't show up in Cincinnati very often. This must be a pretty special game. And then we went out and laid an egg in the first half. I mean, we had 4 turnovers, in the first half. And you're not going to win any game, doing that. But, we came back, and I think we were the first Super Bowl where we had more touchdowns, more yards passing than the opponent. But, the total in the game was 5 turnovers, and you don't win a game with 5 turnovers.
Yeah, and there quite a few of them were in the red zone, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, and the first one was on me. That we kicked off to them, and they fumbled. We get the ball in great position. We get a first down, and we've got 3rd down on the 5-yard line. I mean, it's a chip shot automatic for Jimmy Breach, and the team that scores first has the statistical the best chance to win. And so we go 3 receivers to the left. Isaac's the outside. The way that they play, we're picking the 2 inside guys are going out to pick for him. He's coming underneath. We got the coverage we want. I throw it, and it's intercepted by Dwight Hicks. He runs it out. They take it down the field. They get the first score. So years later, I see him at a celebrity golf tournament. I go up and say hi to him. He said, "Oh, I'm surprised you're talking to me." And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I've forgotten about that, a long time ago. I only think about it every day. But he said, I got to tell you this. He said, I blew the coverage. I don't know why. I was on the inside receiver. He went to the corner. I don't know why I left him. I should not have been there. So at least I could take the consolation. I read the coverage right, and it should have been a touchdown.
Say, Tori, didn't you have a question about the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so there's the period late in the game where you're not quite getting it in with Pete Johnson. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any thought during that goal line stand of, should I just pull this one back and run it in, or we're just going to keep pounding with Pete, or what was the
now you got to remember that we running Pete Johnson the goal line had been automatic for us during the season. We had one pass thrown to Charlie Alexander. He should have been in the end zone. He came up a yard short. But a lot of people have said that. But their defensive coordinator was Chuck Studley. He used to be with the Bengals when I was playing. They were ready for that play if I had chosen to do it.
Okay.
So it would not have been a good call. And like I said, handing the ball off to Pete, hey, they made a couple of plays. You got to commend them for that.
Yeah, that was about as automatic as the tush push is for the Eagles, because he scored all the time when you handed it off to him.
No question.
Ken, how are we doing on time?
You're fine.
We good? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
I still got a little left in my glass. We're good to go.
Hey, Ken, my question to you also is, you look at Lamar Parrish and Ken Riley, 2 awesome corners. When you went up against them in practice, do you feel like they helped make you a better quarterback when you practice against them?
Oh, no question. No question. And especially Kenny, because Kenny was, he ended up being a coach. He was such a smart guy. He would come off, and if I would do, he had 65 interceptions, fourth all time. He had more than that against me in practice. But, he would come up and share what he saw with you, where my eyes were, where my feet were, what I was doing. So everything that they did, made you a better player.
Awesome. To piggyback off of that, was there who was the player for you that when he lined up opposite of you, you were like, this is going to be a long game?
Nobody. I mean, when during my era, the Steelers defense was maybe the best defense of all time. But we had more success against them than any team, in the league. And I remember the game that clinched the division in the 81 season was in Pittsburgh. And we had a third down, and we had a quarterback draw called. And I'm at the line of scrimmage, and Jack Lambert, their middle linebacker, when he took out his teeth, he may have been as ugly a guy as you've ever seen. But I'm there understanding. He goes, watch the quarterback draw. And I'm thinking, should I audible? We ran the quarterback draw and picked up a first down. And, of course, Jack was the kind of guy, our center got a good block on him. And every time he got blocked, he complains to the officials that, it was holding. And then I hit Kreider for a touchdown, on that drive. But, no, I mean, there was, so many great players, in that era. I mean, the Oakland Raiders defense that we played in the playoffs in 1975, the Dolphins defense, that we played in 73, in the playoffs. I mean, so no, I mean, I never went into the game and said, oh, now, going in game planning that we got to make sure that this guy doesn't wreck the game for us. But I never went in worrying about anybody on the other side.
Now, on the inverse, was there ever a time where you saw someone on the schedule, you're like, oh, I can't wait to just obliterate these guys? You just got so geared up for it.
No, because, when you go and you think, oh, God, we're 7-0, we ought to obliterate them, and we don't play well, they play good. I mean, anybody can beat anybody, going into a game. I mean, certainly it was always a big game when we played the Browns when Paul Brown was the head coach. And, of course, he was the past head coach of the Browns. And, I remember the first time we're going into Cleveland, and we stopped at the stadium. It was the old Cleveland Stadium. We had to get out of the bus and go in and look around. He says, I don't want you to be surprised tomorrow. This is a very cavernous place. It looked like a football stadium to me with a 100-yard field, but he wanted you to be ready for it. You knew it was a special game with Paul Brown when we played the Cleveland Browns.
So going to this season, for the Bengals to win it all, this is from Marshall in the chat. What's one missing piece that you see that the front office needs to try to make an adjustment on in this season?
I don't know if it's what the front office has to do. I think the big thing is to keep Joe Burrow healthy. And he's kind of had freak injuries. Is he injury prone? I mean, no. I mean, it's a risk this year. It's a knee, 1 year. I mean, it's not a consistent thing. It's a freak thing. And we just have to have the offensive line, protect him a little bit. I mean, I think we got the weapons. And you look at Kansas City. They lost Tyreek Hill. They didn't have everything that they needed to win, but they won because they had Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Joe Burrow is that guy. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has had a great year. I'm going to tell you what, that I would take Joe Burrow over him every day.
We would too. No.
And the thing is that he is a great guy too.
Yes.
He's a leader. He's a leader by example. His work ethic is outstanding. The way he prepares is outstanding. And he uses his forum to make a difference in the Cincinnati community, whether it's hunger, insecurity, whether it's the mental health of children. He's making a big difference in the Cincinnati community in Athens, Ohio. And I commend him for that. I got so much respect for him.
I think that makes a good transition to talk about the difference that you're making along with Ted Karras. Talk about that partnership that you guys just announced just a couple weeks ago.
Well, I'm going to start off with the Ken Anderson Alliance, where we started that. Our original goal was to try to create housing for adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities. That's a hard thing to do, but what we're doing now with our adult day services, which are our melodic connections, which is music therapy, with our engage outings, going out in the community in groups to a ball game, to putt, maybe volunteering at another nonprofit, our job training, our job placements. We're servicing over 300 adults a month. But the reason I got involved with this, about 14 years ago, was to do housing, and Ted was doing this up in Indianapolis at the village of Marici, and I got to see some of the stuff that he's done up there. His first project was taking a barracks at the old Fort Benjamin Harrison and converting it into apartments. Excuse me. So I knew what he was doing. He knew what I was doing. Indianapolis is his hometown. He wants to live in Cincinnati. He's having his first child in a couple of months. And he wants to do the same thing here. So we have partnered with him and his development company to do the housing. So I think this is going to be a home run for Cincinnati.
Well, we really appreciate it. And I don't mean that by any subdued level. Bengal Dad's actually my dad. And my brother, his son, has severe autism. So, just the Ken Anderson Alliance, everything it does for adults with disabilities, it really does. It hits home hard with us. The first ever show we did on this podcast, which was 3 or 4 years ago at this point, we used to take month by month and try and generate donations for different causes. And the first one we ever tried to raise money for was for your foundation. It probably was only about $70 when we did it, but we made sure that was the first one we ever tried to help raise money for.
I appreciate that, and I want to remind folks that this Sunday we've got our Autism Rocks event out at Laurie's Roadhouse in Westchester. That the gates open, doors open at 11, but from noon to 5, we've got 5 local bands playing one every hour. And then the 6th hour, we have our Melodic Connections band. Our adults with developmental disabilities is the headliner, and deservedly so. We got a great silent auction out there. My wife, Christy, is I'm interested to see what's in this one box. It's called Kenny's Favorite Things. I don't know what I'm sure there's some adult beverages in there somewhere. We have a leg lamp, but the leg is a pair of Bengal game pants with the socks and a football shoe on, and it's signed by Evan McPherson.
Wow,
nice.
We've got a Ted Karras jersey. We've got my jersey. We've got Jamar Chase. We've got Jake Browning. Try to find a Jake Browning signed jersey around that. We've got that. We got a great silent auction. You can go online and bid now on those if you want to. But it's Sunday starting at 11. I'm going to be out there all day. If you love music, it's all kind of genres. It's pop, it's rock and roll, it's country, it's blues. So a little bit of everything for the entire day, and it's going to be just a great day. So that's this Sunday. Doors open 11 at Laurie's Roadhouse.
That's awesome.
All right.
Santori, do you want to talk about what we're doing?
Oh, yeah, sure. We, in conjunction with quite a few other podcasts, it's us, Bengals and Brews. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them at all. Mm-hmm. But we all kind of came together, and we're working on making it an official nonprofit, but we're working together as an organization called Project Game Day. There's a little thumbnail of it right there. We are working on sending either adults with disabilities or veterans with disabilities to their first Bengal game. So we're going to be giving away tickets in the future when we're able to accommodate a little more. We're going to be working on maybe a hotel accommodation if they're coming from out of town. We're also going to be buying them and the person that their guest a Bengal jersey of their choosing at the pro shop. We have raised just about over $1,000 so far and have tickets for half of the games for all of next year already.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep. So we're doing that. We're partnering with Midwest Best Barbecue over in Loveland off Ward's Corner Road. And we are having a little bit of a launch party for the organization during night 2 of the draft. So Friday, April 26th, from 4 to 7, we're going to be doing some silent auctions, some raffles, just raising money for that cause. So we're hopefully going to get a little bit of noise and get that started. And I know we've already got probably 4 or 5 games lined up this year, and looks to like we're going to be able to keep doing that. So it's working real hard on that one right now.
Well, just so you know, when they go down to the pro shop, they do have an Anderson jersey with my a Man of the Year award logo, because every player that is the Man of the Year has a permanent logo on their jersey. So you can buy my jersey down there if you'd like to give them one of those too.
That's right.
I'll push it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I love that. But yeah, our buddy Matt, Bengals and Bourbon, he kind of came up with the idea, and he was just like, I want you all involved. And so now we're all involved, and now we're all pushing it and really, really hoping to make a small difference, like you and your alliance has made such a huge difference. We're trying to do that on just a smaller scale.
Well, speaking of bourbon, there's a bourbon called Three Chords, which was started by Pat Benatar's husband. And because of they sought us out because of our music connection. And so they've come up with a bottle, a special Ken Anderson Alliance bottle that we get $10 for everything that every bottle that they sell. It's not available in Ohio, but I know you can buy it at the party stores over in Kentucky. So it's available in Kentucky, but it's a very good bourbon. I've gotten into bourbon a little bit since we moved back here. So it's been a lot of fun.
I'm into it a little bit.
Yeah. You got any Blantons?
Pardon me?
You got any Blantons?
I got it down in the basement. Oh yeah, I got a lot of stuff down. I like the Woodford Double Oak.
Yeah.
So no, we're good to go. And I can't talk about this, but if you come out to our event on Sunday at Laurie's Roadhouse, there is a chance to get maybe some very special bottles of something that I really can't mention out there, but that you just did while we're there. So it'll be a fun day.
All right.
There you go.
That's awesome. Well, you talked about it just a second there. Talk about what that Walter Payton Man of the Year award means to you. It wasn't called that back then, right? So
it was called the Dodge Man of the Year.
Yeah.
It's the same trophy, basically. I was telling Ted Karras, I can't believe he didn't win it this year, but this was the Dodge Man of the Year. I got it at the AFC Championship game in Pittsburgh, and I got a Dodge Charger with it. So that was a pretty nice little perk to go home and get with it. But that's probably the most prestigious honor that I've had, because it's not only what you do on the field, but it's what you do off the field as well. And that's what, I'm so proud of all my former teammates. When you look at these guys still making a difference in the community, like, Anthony Munoz and Jimmy Breach, and you look at the players nowadays that have continued that tradition, what Joe Burrows does, with his foundation, and Sam Hubbard. I mean, you can go on and on. I mean, all the Bengals are out in the community, making a difference. And I'm just so proud of, guys that wear the stripes now that continue on that tradition of Bengals making a difference in the community.
Absolutely.
And it seems like even the young guys they're already getting their foundations, like Cam Taylor Britt with the Juice Foundation. There's already they're starting so young with seeing what they need to do and how to give back.
No question about it. And like I say, I think you take it, to a man with the Bengals, what they do, and it's unpublicized, but they go out to schools, they go out, making a difference in the community. And like I say, that's why, I am so proud to be a Bengal.
Absolutely.
I'm right there with you. Bengal fan, though, for me. Bengal Dad, what do you got? Or is it too loud? Oh,
You're muted, Bengal Dad.
Probably a little loud.
One.
Oh, he went off. Okay.
Probably a little loud.
A little loud.
Okay. Greg, what do you got, bud?
Mr. Anderson, if there's one Bengal you saw playing, you're like, man, I wish I could have played with that guy. Which Bengal would it be?
Uh-oh.
Whoop.
Uh-oh.
He'll be back. Right there he is.
I don't know, but I had Isaac Curtis, so I think he was the best. But it'd have been fun to throw to Jamar Chase.
Yes, it would.
I can see that. You doing okay with time, or do we need to?
No, I'm fine right now for a few more minutes.
Cool.
Okay. Awesome. Santori?
I hate to say I'm good, but I'm really enjoying listening to everything.
Right.
So, but if I come up with something, I'll let you know. But I'm good right now.
No. Well, actually, there was one in the chat here. Hang on just a second. I want to go back to it. There's a lot of comments in here. Do you have any insight on the turf versus natural grass argument that's going on right now? Because obviously you played on the turf at Riverfront.
Well, that was a whole different thing than they're playing on today.
Right.
It was when we played, it was like taking a piece of carpet and putting it over asphalt. And that's kind of what we played on. The turf nowadays, the synthetic turf is so much better. I think Joe Burrow has even said he'd rather play on the synthetic turf than grass. And I think it's just got to become consistent. I mean, how are you going to put grass in some of these domed stadiums?
Right.
I mean, in Detroit, for example, great stadium. In Arizona, they've got grass in there, but they can roll it out. When there's not a game and it can grow in the sunshine. You can't do that in Detroit.
Right.
So I think it's just got to become consistent. I don't want to try to act like I know what the statistics are, but I'm not sure that there's much difference in lower leg injuries on turf rather than grass. And I know in Pittsburgh, they were voted the worst grass field in the league when I was coaching there. And the Roonies wanted to come in and put a synthetic turf, and they said, no, that's our field. They wanted to play on that field. So I think it's a tough field. I think what the Players Association would like to be is at least the synthetic turf to be a little bit more consistent.
Yeah. Greg, go ahead, bud.
So Mr. Anderson, James here is a big UK basketball fan, and I was looking you up, and you were childhood friends with this one UK player, and I said it to James. I'm like, James, do you know this guy? He's like, well, yeah, I know this guy. Why do you ask? And well, what was the UK guy basketball player's name that you
Dan
know?
Issel.
Dan Issel.
Yes.
His backyards and mine ran into each other. We were a year apart. So, I mean, we played baseball, basketball, and football together, our whole lives. I mean, we had some great games. He had a double driveway. I only had a single driveway, but he had a double driveway. We had some great games, at his house. My dad was the janitor at the high school, so when weather got bad, we could always kind of sneak in there with my dad. But he was a good football player and a good baseball player as well. So we still stay in touch. He's down in Louisville now.
Yeah.
So, but just a great guy and a great player.
I do have a question kind of going off of what we had just talked about with some field conditions. When you were playing, what was the absolute worst place to play field-wise?
Probably Pittsburgh.
Okay.
They had the tartan turf, which was really, there was no nap on that at all. It was just kind of just a carpet on it. So, I would say Pittsburgh, the old Three Rivers Stadium.
All right. Then what was the best?
Gosh. I always like going to San Diego. I don't know if it was just the grass or because it was warm. I don't know.
I do have a question. Earlier, James asked you for a story about there's a Paul Brown story. Do you have a really good story that maybe not a lot of people know about with Forrest Gregg?
Not really. I think, we always did a lot of up downs before practice.
Oof.
We do like 70 up downs, and and then, gosh, we get done with that. We'd run a lap around the field, and we go to the 7-man set. I'm trying to call it cadence. I'm trying to catch my breath, and then every practice after that, we always had our passing practice. And I'm going, and he said, Kenny, put some touch on the ball. I said, I can hardly lift my arm up with touch on the ball. But no, Forrest was kind of just hard on everybody. But I do remember one story. We always had our in 1981, we had our rookie show. And Forrest always had a night he wore these real loud plaid pants. And somehow at our rookie show, Collinsworth went in and got those pants and wore them and was impersonating Forrest Gregg. So I'm not sure if Forrest laughed or he was getting ready to scream. I'm not sure which was going to happen then.
Oh, man. Speaking of Collinsworth, talk about him a little bit, about how he played the game. It just seemed like he was kind of a gazelle out there.
Great player. Faster than you thought. At one point, he won the 100-yard dash at the state track meet in Florida. Now, there are some fast guys down in Florida.
Yeah.
But he was, kind of a lanky guy, but he was really smart. He knew how to get in the holes of a defense. And then he would go and they go out there and there's this, tall white. He ain't real fast, and then he'd blow right by him. So Chris was a great, great player.
Greg, I know you got more.
Well,
you got a lot on that paper.
Yeah, I was going to say I do have a lot on that paper. So going back, you get drafted by the Bengals. What is your first thought about Cincinnati?
I got lucky. I got to go to Paul Brown and Bill Walsh. I got to go to a small, a smaller market. You grew up in Batavia, Illinois. It was 10,000 people when I was there. You go to a Division III school. I think, if I'd have gone to a big city, I'd have gotten swallowed up, But that was the perfect place, for me to go. So I was so excited to go to Cincinnati.
Awesome.
Bengal Dad, you got more?
No,
now that it's
I'm
quiet?
Good. I'm good.
Okay.
Bengal Dad is at a loss for words. When has this happened before?
Never.
just in your presence.
Oh, okay.
Well, this might be just the perfect place to kind of pause for now, and I for one want to say thank you so much for coming on. I know everybody else feels the exact same way. We've been fortunate enough here lately to have some really good guests on, Corey Dillon, and we've had Reggie Williams before. We've had David Fulcher, Icky Woods. Now you. We're very blessed, and thank you so much for just taking the time and having a conversation with us.
Absolutely.
Well, the pleasure is mine. I've had a great time tonight, so I hope we can do this again.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Doors wide open.
Absolutely.
And don't forget, you guys are invited to come to Laurie's Roadhouse, this weekend for Autism Rocks. You'll have a great time.
Well, I'm off work, so I might have to scoot on over there for sure.
Well, and there are adult beverages available.
See, I'm down in Paris, Kentucky, so I'm a little further away. It's a little tougher for me to be able to get to stuff in Cincinnati. But I know that these guys will be able to represent.
And Bengal Dad, next time we see together, I want you to have those white teeth like Rex Ryan.
Oh yeah, I'll go work on that real quick. I'll run down to the dentist and get some made.
Okay.
There we go.
But guys, I've had a great time tonight, and please, I give you the invitation, or give you the right. Call me again. I'd love to do it again.
Absolutely,
Mr. Anderson. This is just a true honor. Thank you so much.
The pleasure's mine. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. On that note, I think it's a good time to remind everybody that you can go for Project Game Day on Twitter. We are accepting donations, so that way we can send adults with special needs and military veterans to their first Bengals game. So please hit us up on Twitter. I believe Santori and Dale are almost done with their draft guide for only $1 a piece. $1 a piece. That's all you got to pay. And you're getting information on 230 guys. Is that right?
We've hit 250. We wanted to cap it at 150, but it just keeps going.
Right.
But we've got bios, pros, cons, where we rank them for. We've got 250, and I think we've got 50 honorable mentions. So if somebody gets drafted that we didn't look at, I'll be surprised.
Right. So make sure if you're interested in that, to hit one of them up. Dale, obviously, on Bengals and Brews, Santori on here. But for Ken Anderson, Bengal Dad, Santori Miles, and Big Savage Greg, thank you so much for watching Houday, and we'll see you later.
And right into the stretch. Looking back and throws up the middle. Rose is on his way.